Hi, my name is Bear, and you're watching the second episode of Bookies. Today we're going to be reviewing a novel called The Gold in These Hills by Joanne Bischof. In 1889, the editor of a British weekly called Titbits, and no, I didn't make that name up, asked their elderly women subscribers why they never married. One subscriber, Miss Sparrow, wrote back and said, "I do not wish to enlarge my menagerie of pets. I find the animal man less docile than a dog, less affectionate than a cat, and less amusing than a monkey." If Miss Sparrow can be properly said to be representative of elderly British single women, then maybe I should not have been as trusting as I was when I took the recommendation from a YouTuber, an elderly British woman, on historical fictions, her top 10 best. Well, I think I was duped into reading a romance. But notwithstanding, I give it a 3.5, and it's a pretty good book, and you should read it. The setting of our story takes place in an abandoned gold rush town by the name of Kenworthy. Behind me, you can see this lovely lake, and just 100 yards or so away from here is the Nobles Immigrant Trail that passes by my house, past this lake, and then drops down to what were formerly the gold rush towns of Old Shasta, French Gulch, and Redding, California. The gold in these hills is essentially a timeline of two main characters separated by about a century. The first character is Juniper Cohen. Juniper's timeline takes place from about 1900 to 1904. Even though most everybody has left Kenworthy because the mine did not end up having gold, she stays with their two children in hopes that her husband John will return after about a 6-month absence. At 22 years of age, Juniper responds to an advertisement put into the newspaper by a miner. He's seeking a bride. After a series of correspondence, Juniper moves to Southern California to marry this individual. She was a gold rush bride. It's quite common. Women with no economic prospects of their own and men with no prospects of marriage because they're in the mines typically formed marriage relationships out of necessity. Juniper was such a person, even though she did grow to love her husband. After her husband disappears, Juniper stays in Kenworthy to raise her two children in the hopes that he'll return. Juniper lives in a home by herself with her two children. The home was actually built by her husband for the mine owner, but when the mine went bust, there was no gold in the mine. Everybody disappeared with the exception of a handful of people. Our second main character is Johnny. Separated by a century, Johnny finds the letters that Juniper had written. Juniper wrote these letters as a means of consolation. She wrote the letters to her husband, knowing that her husband would probably never find them, but it was her way of processing through the pain of abandonment. So Johnny finds these letters and he reads them. Like Juniper, Johnny also is feeling a sense of abandonment. His wife has left him for another man, and he needs a place to stay. He needs a place that he can raise his two children, hopefully in a situation of joint custody. Without this broke down old home that Johnny can fix up because he's a contractor, essentially his prospects for getting joint custody of his children are nil. At the beginning of this review, I made fun of the book a little bit, because I called it a romance, but it's really not. I mean, if you think that books about relationship are romance, then yeah, it's a romance. It's categorized in Goodreads as a romance or Christian romance. Really, it's about relationship. That's why I didn't put it down. That's why I finished it. That's why I'm recommending it to you today. Each of the storyline delves into the real hard work, the cold, steely work of relationship. Bischof asks the question, what does it mean to forgive? Is it that false forgiveness where you tell the other person, well, I forgive you, but I won't forget? Or is it something deeper? Is forgiveness the possibility of allowing the person to reinvent themselves, to correct the past, and begin again? I was actually quite surprised at Bischoff's ability to capture the emotions of a man who feels abandoned, or a man who needs forgiveness, a man who so badly wants to rebuild the relationship, but who understands that rebuilding that relationship is not his work. It's the work of the person that needs to forgive, and he can't control it. Ultimately, forgiveness is the work of the person that's been harmed. In reflecting on that 100-year gap between Johnny and Juniper, Johnny writes, "For some wild reason, we've shared this farm. I realized that we shared something else, pain, hope. It seems to spring up from this place. It settles around the land like dew. It's in every creak of the stairs and every knot in the pine walls. It's a cry for home and in some ways for renewal. She and I, we wanted the same things. Because this is a novel about relationships, you shouldn't expect like a big dramatic conclusion. Rather, what you get with relationship is resolution, because that's the way relationship works. When there's trouble, there's resolution. And I think it's good for all of us, male or female, to read books about relationship. Relationship is the most rewarding, challenging, and if you're doing it right, the most vulnerable thing you'll ever engage in your life. So it's worth discovering, it's worth exploring in books. Where would this book fit in your library? I see this book as like a 2-day read. When you have 2 days, maybe the weather's bad outside and you just want to curl up on the couch and drink some coffee and read a good, simple book, an enlightening story, that's where this book belongs in your library. It could be a beach read if that's your vibe, but that's okay too. But to conclude, I do think you should read the book. It's an enjoyable read, and I think you'll enjoy it too. And with that, I'm going to sign off and get away from these mosquitoes. Enjoy your day.